ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive. Brought to you by Huntington Federal Savings Bank. Local then, local now. Member FDIC.
It is Friday, October 18th. Your drive begins now on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. You can join the program, of course, by calling the Miller Lite phone lines, 877-420-TALK. That is 877-420-8255. Miller Lite, hold true, great taste, only 96 calories. It is the original light beer. Now, today is a little different than usual. We've got Marshall football. We've got a big-time matchup tonight. It's an East Division Friday night showdown between Marshall and Florida Atlantic and Boca Raton coming up tonight, 6:30 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. Pregame is happening right now on our sister station, 93.7 The Dog. Now, Marshall leads the all-time series 5-1, and last year here in Huntington, Marshall intercepted 4 FAU passes. Tyler King ran for 125 yards, had a touchdown in that 30-7 win. We're going to see a similar result tonight? Well, we will find out. And joining us now from Boca Raton, Florida, CJ Harvey from WCHS. And tonight, Marshall can either put themselves right back in the hunt for an East Division title, or they're going to have a lot of work to do and hope that a lot of things fall in place if they lose tonight.
Yeah, hey, Paul. Definitely the situation here for the Thundering Herd today. They definitely could use a big win. 3-3 on the season, not where the Thundering Herd probably thought that they would be, but certainly in a good spot today if they can come out with a win against the Owls, who bring a 4-2 record and have shown that they can certainly score. FAU was, you talked about their quarterback play from last year. Chris Robinson came in, had a couple of interceptions last year. Well, he's reduced that. He had 12 total touchdowns and 12 interceptions last year. He's already surpassed his total touchdown number this year, and he's only thrown 2 interceptions. So certainly going to be difficult to try and slow that guy down, but certainly the Marshall defense has been pretty tough this season. Outside of that Cincinnati game, the Marshall defense has been pretty solid, so it should be a good matchup, at least on that side of the ball today. And yeah.
Do you see this as a quarterback showdown? I mean, we got 2 gunslingers out there. We've got the co-freshman of the year with Isaiah Green and Chris Robinson. You know what Green's done, 1,416 yards, total offense, 6 touchdowns in the first 6 games. And you mentioned Robinson averaging a lot, 259.5 yards per game. He's got that league-high 13 touchdown passes, as you mentioned. I mean, we might have 2 gunslingers going out there tonight if they're both feeling it.
Yeah, definitely. The Robinson kid can definitely throw it, and he's got a couple of tight ends on that team that are really good. And here's your little side note about the Robinson and tight end matchup here. The tight ends coach for FAU, former WVU quarterback Clint Trickett, so he's really got those guys playing well, and Robinson and his tight ends have been really in sync this season. Isaiah, what's been interesting about Isaiah, he's been able to throw the ball decently well, but he's really gotten it done with his feet more so than we saw last year. Last week with Old Dominion, Brendan Knox, Sheldon Evans, and Isaiah Green all combined for 200 total rushing yards. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a quarterback showdown, but not necessarily who can swing it the farthest or swing it the most. I think it's going to be who's playing their style the best. Can Robinson connect with his tight ends and throw some touchdowns, or can Green kind of open the passing game up with his legs and with the help of some of his running backs? But I think, like you said, yeah, it's probably going to be a good quarterback showdown, but different styles, I think, are being brought to the table today.
This is going to be an interesting one on defense because right now we're keeping an eye on Devontae Beckett. He's got 60 tackles right now. He's definitely been all over the ball. And then you got Darius Hodge, named Conference USA Defensive Player of the Week, tying his school record, 4.5 sacks. He had 7 tackles in that victory over Old Dominion last week. Also, the 26 yards lost on those sacks, tied for 3rd most in school history. So get to the quarterback early and often is probably the Marshall mantra tonight.
Yeah, I think that's been a mantra all season, and they've done well. And Darius Hodge, man, he has been just absolutely lights out for this Thundering Herd defense for the last few games. And, Devontae Beckett, somebody that came in, had brought up in postgame last week. They said, hey, man, he's got 60 tackles. He smiled real big. He said, 10 a game, not a bad average. So Devontae Beckett's been playing well for these guys. And yeah, this defense has been, stacking the box, getting after the quarterback quite a bit, and Darius Hodge has been leading the way. It will be fun for, these guys that like to get after the quarterback when you see a guy that likes to throw it as many times as Lane Kiffin and the Robinson kid do for FAU. That kind of lights up those linebackers and linemen's eyes, saying, hey, we're going to get a chance to get after these guys, and hopefully Marshall can do that.
Either Darius Hodge and Tavante Beckett maybe having fun with each other this week. Tavante sets a career-high 14 tackles against Old Dominion. Darius Hodge, he gets Player of the Week on the defensive side after 4.5 sacks. I mean, what's Beckett got to do to get some love here?
And the sad part is there's a couple other guys on that defense that are probably playing real well and grading out well when they watch the film. But, man, you see those 4.5 sacks, and it's tough to not give Darius Hodge some love. And, Beckett's saying, hey, man, maybe push him to my side. I'll sack him for you, and maybe he can take some of those sack numbers away. I would say that a sack is as big and as valuable to the guy that sacked the guy and anybody else that's playing defense. I think it doesn't matter who it is for this team. I think they all have fun with each other and maybe say, hey, maybe give me some love this week. But I'm sure that anybody getting a sack is it's just as big no matter who it is. 8 total sacks last week. I mean, it wasn't just all about Darius Hodge. There were a ton of guys getting in the backfield last week. So Marshall certainly felt good. That defense feeling good after last week's game. Hopefully they can bring it down here into Florida.
That run game has got to be feeling good as well. Marshall gets 236 on Old Dominion. That is 105 more than what Old Dominion gave up in any game this season. And you got Brendan Knox leading the way. He goes over 100 again. Isaiah Green, he's looking like he can run the RPO a little bit better now, or at least he's taking advantage of the RPO. He's actually pulling the ball up and just going. Sheldon Evans comes in as well. He gets 50 yards. These guys were really solid on the ground.
Yeah, and Doc Holliday had brought up last week. He said, Sheldon Evans has come a long way, and he's not just getting yards and kind of garbage time. I mean, he's getting yards on first, second down against first and second. The top line defense against some of these teams. So Marshall had some question marks about the running back group after the departure of Tyler King. Sheldon Evans has come in there and fit in perfectly, and of course you add that little touch with Green and what he can bring with his legs, and Doc had even said about Brendan Knox, man, he's just steady Eddie. You give that guy the ball 20 times, he's going to get you 100 yards and a touchdown or two. So definitely this team has relied on the run game. It's what's fueled them to the couple of wins that they do have, and I'm sure that's going to be a big establishing point for this offense come today.
Joining us from Boca Raton, Florida, he's CJ Harvey from WCHS. All right, how's it feel? You guys flew, right? I mean, usually you're driving down like in the middle of the night. You guys actually flew down this time. We did. Yeah, we did. We flew down, and, it was a pretty quick trip, hour and a half through the air, and then we got down here. Now, we're kind of keeping an eye on what's going on in the Gulf Coast there, but it doesn't look like there's going to be any rain for this game, maybe a light breeze, but it seems like the rain is going to miss Boca and, this part of Florida. Now, getting out of here is going to be a different question. We'll see if we can try and avoid the rain on our exit trip. But at least for this game's forecast, I think it's very cloudy. There's no sun. You can't see the sun in the sky, but it's a nice, easy breeze, about 85 degrees, and it's just a nice feel here in Boca. I will tell you, though, we did get off last night, Mark Martin and I, who we share a room. We had to be on our best behaviors because we found out that the guy that was rooming right next to us, it was Doc Holliday. So Coach Holliday was right next to us. So Mark and I made sure that we kept it quiet last night. We get a little rowdy every now and then, the WCHS team. So we made sure Doc got some good Z's over the last night. So we had to keep it quiet. Do you think you guys were put next to him deliberately by everyone else, or was that maybe a Doc Holliday, I don't want to be near anybody else other than Mark Martin?
Maybe that's it. In my mind, I'd like to think that was it, that he said, those two guys, they're not loud. They're pretty easygoing guys. Let's stick them next to me. But I've got a feeling it was total coincidence that Doc Holliday and was rooming right next to Mark Martin and I. And there's no conjoining door. There wasn't a door for us to go in there. He had everything locked off, so it wasn't exactly like we were hanging out with the coach last night. He probably didn't spend a lot of time in his room anyway, but no, I don't think it was. I think it was a coincidence this week.
CJ Harvey's joining us in WCHS. What's the buzz for this one? I asked Bill Cornwell earlier during our pregame show over on our sister station, 93.7 The Dog, and I want to kind of get a feeling from you. You've been down there for a little bit now, and of course, you guys have taken in a little bit of the lifestyle that is Boca Raton. What's the buzz for this one? Are fans amped up? Are they excited for this? Or, hey, FAU's playing? I mean, wow, I didn't know.
Well, I think there's a little bit of that. These Friday night games can oftentimes be hard to get the fan base energized. But, man, Boca is such a beautiful place. The weather's great. FAU Stadium is absolutely beautiful. Maybe if you watch the game on CBS Sports tonight, you might be able to notice in the end zone, in one of the end zones, they've got all these cabanas set up, couches, TVs, chairs. I mean, somebody told us that it costs $2,000 to sit in these certain in these cabana areas, and it's just like there's so much to do here. It's almost like, well, there's a football game going on here, but there's palm trees and lounge chairs all across the stadium as well. So there's a lot of attractions here, but I think the buzz is that FAU and Marshall are two strong contenders for a Conference USA championship this year. FAU did not have a great team last year. They've bounced back in a big way this year. They have two marks against them. Well, they were against Ohio State and UCF, and they played well. They played decently well against Ohio State. Ohio State is Ohio State, of course, but they put 21 points up on the Buckeyes, more than a lot of teams this year. So I think FAU thinks they've got a good team. I think Doc Holliday and Marshall pretty hungry after a couple of, you lose the close one to Boise, but then you kind of take a butt kicking against Cincinnati and Middle Tennessee. A lot of things just didn't go right for your team. So I think this team's real hungry, playing with a little bit of a chip on its shoulder. And I think FAU's feeling pretty confident that they've got a good team again. So it should be fun. Doc Holliday and Lane Kiffin don't have much of a history. They've only played twice as head coaches. They're 1-1, so they've split games. But I think these are two of the class acts in Conference USA. So I think there's just a lot of buzz in terms of just it's going to be a good competitive game with a bunch of people that fans outside of Conference USA kind of know, the Lanes, the Docs, and some of these guys. So it should be a lot of fun.
CJ Harvey joining us from WCHS. You guys enjoy the rough assignment you guys have down there tonight. You just
I know it. We've been enjoying ourselves. We try and have a good time. These trips are quick turnarounds. You get down here, you do some work, you get out to dinner, but then by the time you wake up the next morning, all right, you're on the move. Let's get to the stadium. Let's get things going, and let's get to game time. That's kind of where we're at right now. It's like, all right, let's just get to game time. We're ready to start this thing.
Have fun tonight. I'll be at Roosters for our we will be over there right now. Actually, be sitting back and enjoying this, but high school football in the area tonight. Well that you're playing hooky from all the action tonight.
Yeah, Mark Martin and I unfortunately will be on our Friday night football extra show that will be on tonight at 11:10 on ABC. But Kenny Bass and Josh Lewis will both be back at the station covering for us again, and those two always have a good time. So no, Mark and I we're kind of playing hooky this week, but Kenny and Josh will certainly hold us down back in Charleston.
CJ Harvey joining us, WCHS Television. I'll talk to you soon. Have fun. Keep my friend Bill Cornwell out of trouble, would you?
Well, that's easier said than done. Some assignments are tougher than others. I'll try my best, Paul.
Well, you know what? Just pawn that over on Martin. He's used to it. Just put that on Mark Martin. He can handle it.
I will. All right. Him and Steve Cotton, the voice of Huntington, they're pretty good. They've been doing it for quite some time now, keeping his butt out of trouble. So I'll leave it up to them this time.
Yeah, because he's your problem tonight, not mine.
We'll see. I am sitting right beside Bill on the flight back home. So I'll have to keep them calm on the way back. But that'll be my job. But we have fun. Bill's a great guy, so and knows his stuff. So everybody knows what to do, and it's game time, man. We're ready to get this thing going.
All right, I have kept you too long. Go get ready for this one. It's coming up in a little bit over than an hour, and of course highlights on WCHS. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right, Paul. Have a good time, my man. Appreciate the time.
That is CJ Harvey, WCHS, joining us. He is on location for this one tonight. When we continue, we're going to turn our attention to high school football. We've got Matt Perry joining us. We're going to preview Spring Valley and St. Albans. Later on, we're going to preview Huntington High's action against Capital as well. We'll take a look at Cabell Midland's matchup with Woodrow Wilson, all when we continue with today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Don't worry. Paul Swann has the wheel on The Drive, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
We are presented by Huntington Federal Savings Bank. Paul Swann, your host, and joining us now for a preview of Spring Valley at St. Albans. We welcome back to the show Matt Perry. Tonight it's Spring Valley at 6-1, taking on a St. Albans team desperate for a win. They come in at 1-6. Hard to get up for a game like this, but this one's important for Spring Valley because they're going on the road before the off week. You don't want to go into the off week a little down. You don't want to go in the off week losing. So really, self-motivation probably the key this week.
Self-motivation is the key. I mean, as you said, when you look at the schedule, you have to play who you have to play. Spring Valley has taken care of business up to this point, and now they want that coveted off week. They have a really good timed off week with Paul Blazer coming to the Wolves' Den a week or 2 weeks from tonight. And so you take care of business tonight, get healthy, and go in with a W.
Last week, Spring Valley did take care of business. They got an important victory, 40-21 win at Riverside. Did it on the ground, did it in the air. Nate Ellis threw for 2 touchdowns, and Luke Christopher scored twice on the ground. So pretty balanced attack.
Yeah, for the first time in a couple of weeks, we saw Spring Valley open up with a passing game a little bit. It was the Corbin Page show along with Nate Ellis. Corbin Page continues to just absolutely impress the sophomore. We were talking to multiple people because Coach Neil Brown from WVU showed up on the sidelines just to watch that particular young man, and he didn't disappoint. When you're 6'5", 230-pound tight end that lines up as a split out, and he beats defensive backs down the field on fly patterns, you're kind of left understanding why he's a D1 recruit. Marshall's already offered him a full ride as a 15-year-old sophomore, and West Virginia is trying to swoop in there as well, and I'm sure many other schools are going to be right behind him.
Yeah, West Virginia's done a really nice job of actually identifying in-state talent and going after it. That's something you didn't see a few years ago with West Virginia. But as we've kind of learned, there is some really quality Division I talent in the state of West Virginia, and it's good to see that Marshall and West Virginia are finally identifying that talent.
And I'm the first to admit that 10 years ago I fell into the same trap of, maybe we just don't have Division I talent in West Virginia. I could not have been more wrong when I would have said those statements, and it is good to see that Doc and Neil Brown up at WVU, because Dana Holgerson treated these kids in West Virginia like they had the plague. I mean, he wanted the JUCO kids, and so it's really cool to see that both schools, my heart's with Marshall. I hope that's where this young man goes. But it's really cool to see that they're identifying, hey, we've got Division I talent right in our backyard. And to see Marshall coaches on the sideline a couple of weeks ago, and to see Coach Neil Brown watching a couple of Spring Valley players last week is a really good sign for the future of Division I football here in the state of West Virginia.
Matt Perry's joining us on the program tonight. Now, we have fun with this, but Bill Cornwell is not present, so guaranteed a victory just about every time, right?
Oh, write it down. Just go ahead and put the W in. Billy's down there in paradise watching the herd, and so I hope he brings back a W, but I'm jealous of him. It's 80. He was complaining that it was 86 on the pregame show that I listened to on the way up here. So I have no sympathy for old Bill Cornwell today. He's whining that it's beautiful a mile from the ocean. So Bill can just go down there and enjoy his Marshall game, and we'll go ahead and chalk up this W.
Yeah, I was. By the way, I was hosting that pregame show you were listening to. Yeah. So
listen.
I was listening to that. I heard that.
There is a reason that you win all these awards, because sitting there listening and you bit your tongue, which is something that I'm not very good at. I would have been like, Bill, you're complaining that it's 85. Come on now. Enjoy the weather, enjoy paradise, and hopefully enjoy that Marshall W.
By the way, did you notice the tone of that show was completely – the demeanor of that show is completely different than this show. Did you notice the difference?
Yes, I did notice the difference. And, as you and I have so pointed out to our audience, though, when high school football and when it's on Friday nights, we're allowed to have a little bit more fun and have some levity into our show. He was super serious on that when he called in, and I'm just sitting here thinking, Bill, you're in paradise. Just cheer up a little bit. So
yeah, unfortunately for CJ Harvey, who was with us previous segment, he's got to fly back down with Billy right beside of him. So
may God be with him.
Yeah, exactly. No, we have fun though. We love Billy. We love Billy, but at the same time, we completely have to make sure that he does not get to go scot-free, knowing that he's complaining about beautiful weather in Florida on a Friday night.
Yeah, and I'm in St. Albans, and I'm cold, and I really have no sympathy for the man. I'm sorry, I can't muster any.
Matt Perry joining me on the program. Spring Valley taking on St. Albans. That game, of course, you can listen to it. It's going to be over on our sister station. That's right, 92.7 and 98.5 The Planet. So hopefully it's a win for Spring Valley, and then get you guys back home and enjoy the bye week for a couple weeks.
I'm looking forward to having an off week. I know Coach Dingus is looking forward to resting up because that Paul Blazer game and obviously ending the season, here's the thing that you and I were talking about beforehand, and something that's really surprising is the enigma that is the Huntington Highlanders. Spring Valley finishes the season at Huntington. We don't know what we're looking at. They have to take care of Capital tonight, and we don't know if Huntington's going to be fighting for a playoff spot, fighting for a home playoff game. We know that Spring Valley's going to be fighting for that top four because right now, even though Martinsburg's not won yet, they will be. It's set up for a semifinals match. Spring Valley's number 4. They're going to have to go to the Eastern Panhandle if it all pans out right now. So Spring Valley needs something to change in that upper 4, and it's going to be interesting to see over the last couple of weeks what happens with these SSAC rankings.
Well, all you have to do is get to 3. You'd be okay.
All they have to do is get to 3. Right now, Cabell Midland, I'm no Nostradamus. Martinsburg is playing a supposedly very tough Virginia opponent tonight. They might stub their toe. I'll believe that when I see it. But Cabell Midland's number 1 right now. And so it's set up for that for a rematch, Spring Valley and Cabell Midland, if all goes according to plan. But I figure by the end of the regular season, Martinsburg might just overtake them and be that number 1 spot.
Well, we'll find out, but looking ahead tonight, it is Spring Valley got to take care of their business tonight, taking on St. Albans. Matt Perry joins us to listen to the game on 92.7 and 98.5 The Planet. Matt, we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. Well, maybe a couple of weeks. We'll see how next week pans out when you're on your bye week. Maybe you'll be lounging on the beach somewhere.
I would love to. It's mostly going to be a little bit of hillbilly or redneck Riviera. I'll just be chilling out on my back porch and listening to our buddies Jason and Woody and Chris call some high school football on my off week.
All right. We'll talk to you next week, Matt.
All right. Have a good one, Paul. Thank you.
Matt Perry. We just might talk to him next week and actually just talk about the off week. When we come back from break, we're going to talk to Woody Woodrum. And we've got Huntington and Capital. That's our big matchup on the Hill tonight. And we'll talk about it when we continue with today's edition of The Drive, presented by Huntington Federal Savings Bank on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
You're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Coming up tonight on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930, you've got 2 3-3 teams. It's been a long time since I've said Capital at 3-3 faces off against Huntington at 3-3. To help us sort it all out, we've got Woody Woodrum, who will be on the broadcast tonight with Chris Tatum right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. What is going on with Huntington High? One week they're good. The next week we don't know what's going on. And if I'm understanding Billy Seal's comments after the loss to Hurricane, he pretty much wasn't happy with his squad the way they came out.
Well, we've been doing this team for about 7 years, Chris Tatum and I together, and I can't think of a game in that time, Paul, that Hurricane held this team to 3 first downs. 2 of them came in their scoring drive, which was the only bright spot the whole evening for the offense. They rushed for only 36 yards on 18 carries. That's even for a journalism major, I can come up with that as 2 yards a carry. Blackwell hit 6 of 17. Now, 105 yards sounds great, but 70 of that came on 2 passes. So, and the time of possession was really the big one. Huntington had the ball about 19 minutes in the game, and so that means the other team had it for 29 minutes, including a 9-minute drive to open the third quarter where they just dinked and dunked this team to death. Now, I will admit, Huntington has lost 2 in a row without Diallo Mitchell, who's an outstanding back for them. He is the other part of the punch with Brockton Blair and Devin Jackson. And Diallo at the time had 40 carries for 223 yards, 4 touchdowns. He'd also caught 5 passes for 170 yards. That's a 34-yard per catch average. So he is a big play player, and they've missed him on offense and on defense for this team. But they were flat last weekend for whatever reason. You know, you can't know that. I know when I watched practice yesterday, they were really at him about tempo and moving and not, you know, walking around, not dragging around, but playing this game. Because, quite frankly, Paul, it's a murder schedule down this stretch. I mean, you got Capital, and I believe I saw online, might have been Metro News, said the last time that Huntington and Capital met with Capital at 500 or less was Billy's first year, 2010. So, you know, you've got a Capital team that's been wounded too and has been struggling a little bit, although they've lost to 3 very good teams. Johnson Central from Kentucky is one of the top-ranked teams over there in their class. Midland and Spring Valley are certainly some of the top-ranked teams in the state. And Spring Valley just put a beat down on them 2 weeks ago, 41-0. Now, the thing that Capital had last week was a week off. And with Huntington's schedule being the way it is this year, missing the first week and then playing 10 straight, they could have certainly used a week off the Parkersburg South game that they lost 30-21. Now, that's one of the best teams in the state, and they played them toe-to-toe. So I guess you hope for that effort. But next week, it's Midland here. Then they go to Parkersburg, who's number 13 right now at 3-3. And then you finish with Spring Valley, who's 6-1 and number 4. So there are no easy games, we like saying the MSAC, but when you're playing in a row, number 9, number 1, number 13, and number 4, well, I mean, that's about as tough as that schedule can be.
Lots of points, though, if you get some wins off that schedule. Lots of points.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, Capital has some easier games, let's say, left down the stretch. They've played this tough schedule early on, so they've got some teams they can beat, and they would add to your points total. Adwood beating Parkersburg, Midland, or Spring Valley. So, yeah, absolutely. Although it looks like 4 and 6 is probably going to qualify in AAA this year, and that's a shame. Nobody thinks that's the right thing, but the way the division is stacked, I mean, you can be 6 and 7 and 0 over in AA, and you might be as low as 10th or 12th. But in AAA, it's just, you know, there's only so many teams, about 26, 28 teams, and they're just beating each other on a regular basis in their regions. And so when you get to playoffs, some people that go 4 and 6 are going to make it. So, you know, we'll see how it goes tonight. Capital they've got a sophomore quarterback who's playing extremely well. He's hit 58% of his passes, 71 of 122. Now, he has thrown 9 interceptions, but he also has 9 touchdowns and has thrown for nearly 1,000 yards already. They've got an outstanding tailback in Tate Callaway, but now he was hurt against Spring Valley, and he is very much up in the air tonight, whether he's going to play or not. He's a guy that averages 7 yards a carry for them and has scored 7 times, so that's 42 points. He's one of the leaders, number 8 in the MSAC. And their receivers, if you give the Landers kid time to throw, Kerryon Martin is the brother of Kerry, who's starting at West Virginia in the defensive secondary. He's got 13 for 317. That's almost 25 yards per catch. You've got Chance Knox, who is an outstanding kid. He was preseason first team in all AAA. And then you've got KJ Taylor, another kid who is 21 for nearly 300, 14 yards a catch, and 2 touchdowns. So they have big play players. They are a little bit young on their offensive line, although they've got 2 seniors. But they only had 1 holdover starter from last year, David Harris, who is also the only really big guy on their line. He's at 295. But they've got a sophomore left tackle like Huntington does at 250. They've got a senior center who's playing for the first year, 240. The guard is a senior playing the first year, 245. And their right tackle must be a quick tackle because he's only at 210. So Huntington can certainly bring some pressure. If they've got Diallo Mitchell back, that's going to help them to bring pressure. Brockton Blair's had an outstanding year at middle linebacker so far. I mean, he's one of the top players in the state. 67 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss. He's blocked a punt. He's got an interception. He had 12 tackles last week against Hurricane. He had 17 against Parkersburg South, and he's rushed for 615 yards in his first year of playing full-time at the running back position. So there are talented players on both sides. Who's going to show up tonight? Well, you hope at home it'll be Huntington, but we're just going to have to wait and see once they kick it off at 7:30 tonight.
We'll have that for you right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. And you guys have fun tonight. Well, let's hope you guys get your game over early tonight so you can get down to Roosters or just get to the radio and get the finale of the Marshall game, because I know you guys, especially you and Chris, you hate it that you get Huntington High and Marshall on the same night. You kind of like to keep those two separated.
Yeah, we'll just have to keep an eye on it on the scoreboard, because I figure by the time we're done, the herd's going to be done one way or the other, I hope. Again, which team will show up tonight for Marshall? It's kind of the same question we're asking here in Huntington tonight.
I don't know. They're going to throw this thing all night. I got a gut feeling it's going to be a quarterback showdown tonight, because you got Isaiah Green. He's going to be throwing. You've got Chris Robinson from FAU. He's going to be throwing. So, yeah, you guys might get the fourth quarter. That's my bet.
Yeah, we might. We'll see.
Woody Woodrum joining us. He'll be on the broadcast with Chris Tatum coming up tonight right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
That is Woody Woodrum, former co-host of this program, in a different variation of this program. When we continue, we're going to talk to Jason Toy. We're going to preview tonight's Cabell Midland action right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Now, back to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
We're presented by Huntington Federal Savings Bank. Paul Swann, your host here for today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. And coming up tonight, it's a different time than you're used to for Cabell Midland football. They're playing at 7:30 tonight as Cabell Midland at Woodrow Wilson. The Knights are 7-0. Woodrow Wilson coming into the contest 1-5, and you can hear that game tonight over on our sister station, 97.9 The River. So we've got a lot of high school action to talk about tonight, and we'll hear from Jason Toy in just a moment as he'll have the call of tonight's action between Cabell Midland and Woodrow Wilson. So usually we put Mr. Toy sort of like as you put him in the middle of the broadcast, because he's solid. I can put him in the middle, but tonight he gets the very last segment. And let me tell you right now, Woody Woodrum basically took over the show in the middle segment. So sorry, you've got like 2 minutes. It feels like
2 minutes, huh?
Yeah. Well, okay. It's 5:54 now, so 3 or 4 minutes. I mean, Woody, he's got the gift.
Well, that's good. We figured he would.
So tonight we've got Cabell Midland over on our sister station, 97.9 The River, taking on a Woodrow Wilson team coming into this one 1-5. This is an important game for Cabell Midland because you can't be complacent, even at 7-0 with Woodrow Wilson 1-5. You got to come out and treat this as if it's a make or break game.
Yeah, you got to play them all. It's the way things are in West Virginia and AAA, and especially when you're trying to get as many points as you can. And that's you got to get out here and play the game. And that's a big thing here tonight for for Cabell Midland. They just got to get out of here and knock it out and play their style of game and try to do what they got to do and hope the points work their way out beyond that. So that's the big thing here tonight. And, I mean, that's why you play football, period. You don't ever take anybody lightly. Now, realistically, if Midland plays their style of game, they should be able to kind of do like they did last week against Princeton, build up a little bit of a lead and start resting some players in the second half. And, they brought everybody here. They brought two of the big coach bus loads of people here, and they're definitely looking to be able to utilize all of them here later on this evening. And you get ready to go back for a big game next week against Huntington High in the Battle for the Shield. And so you want to try to get out of here with no injuries. You want to obviously get out of here with the victory and ultimately try to get as many players as you can tonight.
How difficult is it to keep your energy up? You go up 54-7, 54 points, and you win 54-7. As you mentioned, it gives younger players an opportunity to get in, so I know they're excited. But I mean, that's an energy that's difficult to keep up at 54 points.
Well, it is. Last week was homecoming too, so you had a little added to it as well. That was you had some the pop and circumstance to go along with that, but you had several guys like Jacob Cottle, the big bruising running back that the Knights have, went over 1,000 yards last week. J.J. Roberts continuing to get stronger and faster, and he accounted for 4 touchdowns last week, due for another touchdown as well. And it just, those guys, they played their style of football in that entire first half. You came back out second half, and that's when you're able to let those younger guys and the sophomores and freshmen, and they played really solid. They gave up a touchdown though against Princeton. Of course, Princeton didn't have a whole lot of numbers, so their first teamer stayed out. And but you got a chance to get everybody. I mean, everybody on that team got a chance to play in that game last week against Princeton. That's, as a coach, what you like to see, because A, you're winning, and B, you're also resting your starters to get through the rest of the season here. And you still got 3 more weeks of over the next 4. They got a bye week right before South Charleston. So if you can keep your guys from getting injured, you got some big games coming up with Huntington next week and South Charleston 3 weeks later or 2 weeks later.
What can we expect from Woodrow coming out tonight? They desperately need to win.
They obviously need a win if they want to keep any playoff hopes alive, because right now in AAA, 4 and 6 might get you in, or should get you into the playoffs here this year. But for Beckley, they're pretty much done unless they come out with a win here and down the stretch. But they've been hurt with injuries. There are going to be a lot of freshmen. I mean, we were actually waited to get our lineups till this morning because they really didn't know. They're having to rebuild a lot of things because of injuries, and tonight won't be any different. They got a lot of freshmen that are going to be playing, a lot of sophomores, a really young team, but they're really athletic. They love to throw the football around. They've always been like that too. So that same style will be here, just a lot younger players. They don't have as much depth on the bench too as well. So they've been hurt here the last couple of weeks.
We'll have the broadcast for you tonight on our sister station, 97.9 The River, as Cabell Midland taking on Woodrow Wilson, hoping to move to 8-0 and just a couple more weeks, and then it's playoff time for the Cabell Midland Knights. Looking good.
Yep.
Keep this up. You don't have to go to Martinsburg.
That's a broadcaster, that's our number one goal right now. We want to keep that number 1 seed so we can stay home, and our long road trip will be to Wheeling at the end of the run of it all. But we don't want to make those trips to Musselman or head up to Martinsburg or something like that here this season. Hopefully we can keep that streak rolling.
Yeah, I have some bad memories of Musselman and some other places in the state of West Virginia.
There you go.
Did I tell you one time I wired their brand new football stadium for a phone line since I was the first?
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it was nice of me, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they appreciate that. They should have.
I'm sure it's probably still used today.
I'm sure it is.
Somewhere.
I'm sure it is. Jason Toya joining us tonight. Listen to the Knights take on Woodrow Wilson tonight. 7:30's kick, a little later than you are used to. Hope you can stay up late for this one, and it's on 97.9 The River.
That's my bedtime.
We'll have the game for you as well as scores coming up tonight. Fred Persinger will take us the rest of the way starting at 10. Jason, good talking to you. We'll do it again next week.
All right, man. Have fun. See you. Go Herd.
We've got Huntington High coming up tonight, 7 o'clock right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I'll be back on 93.7 The Dog after the Herd game. For Gabriel Sellers, I'm Paul Swann. Good night, everyone.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington, your flagship home of the Marshall Thundering Herd and The Drive with Paul Swann, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.